Welcome to the Mostly All Figured Out podcast with your host, Emily Rose. Regardless of the career field, the lifestyle, everyone is mostly figuring it all out. This podcast is where we pull back the veil of perfection and share true stories, experiences, encouragement, and of course failures, detailing how people just like you are making it all happen, despite the uncertainty, the fear, the imposter syndrome, the setbacks, the shame, whatever it is. If you believe there is more for you than what your life looks like right now, you're in the right place. Let's figure out our next steps together. Now let's get into the episode. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Mostly All Figured Out podcast. I am your host, Emily Rose. We are in the at-home studio today, recording virtually using the mic from Free Street Tavern. I'm not gonna move it too much because this mic is a devil mic, apparently, but we're so grateful for it. So thanks, Free Street Tavern, for sponsoring the podcast, for giving us this fabulous mic. Thank you to Casa de Pizza, who I still got to go see our friend Shooky over there, former guest on the podcast, to pick up my little audio mixer so that I can record with two mics. Hopefully going to be using that sometime soon. It's really... Actually, yeah. So I have a couple episodes that are going to be on site coming up soon where I will need my two mics and I will need that audio mixer. So thank you to Free Street and Casa de Pizza. We're so grateful. I am super excited for our episode today. Our guest today reached out to me, which is always like mind-blowing whenever that happens, because we were talking before I hit record here. I started this podcast September 2022 because I was like, well, I like to talk to people. I like to connect with people. I am not afraid to be honest and real and a little goofy and probably weird to some people. And so I just, started it by doing podcasts at the Buffalo Public Library. We still do that now. We still use that studio pretty regularly. And so a few times now, I have had people that I don't know reach out to me saying, I think that my message would be well received by your audience. And I think my audience might also receive your podcast well. Can we collaborate? Can we work together? And that's what happened today. And so I am not only hyped because I know that this episode is going to be really impactful for anyone who listens to it already before we even start talking. I know it's going to be impactful for me as well. And I just think we're going to get into some really, really good stuff here. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lauree Ostrofsky, who is a coach and author helping overthinkers and A students leap in their careers and businesses. So welcome, Lauree.
Thank you. Wow, no pressure.
We're changing lives today, and it all starts with you, Lauree.
Get ready, peeps.
I'm so excited. So let's start before we get into the juicy stuff. Well, some of this might be a little juicy, I guess. Are you based in DC? Is that right?
No, I lived there for a while.
Okay.
My best friend lives in Buffalo, actually, but I live in Kingston, New York, so in the Hudson Valley. So
Nice.
southern state.
Very cool. Okay. Are you from Kingston? Are you from DC? Where are you from?
I'm from the Hudson Valley, so I'm from near here, so about 2 hours north of New York City. I lived in Manhattan for a while and Washington, D.C., and kind of made my trip back to the Hudson Valley, not meaning to, but here I am.
Interesting.
Yeah, and here I am, and here I've been for 10 years, so I guess I'm here now.
Yeah. Are you happy there? Do you like it?
Yes, I'm happy now. I think, well, I guess we'll just get into that. But I think that I'm not the only 15, 16-year-old who said I need to leave. Like I need to get out and never come back. And then
Right.
was like, crap. Now I'm here again. Yeah. So I had published my first book. I went on a book tour. I came back, and one parent, then the other parent got sick. They're both pretty well
Mm.
right now, but
Oh, good.
I found myself back here, and then I kind of built a life in a new way. I think it's possible for us to go back again to places if we approach them as if we're in a new place. We are a new person. We are a new version of ourselves. And that's really what I did. And I kind of consciously created the life that I have now.
I love that. And we're definitely going to dive deeper into that. I always like to ask the question, do you have any siblings?
I don't. And
That's
I like
only
asking that question
child.
too. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I'm
how do
very
you
much
think?
a firstborn only child for sure.
Yeah. So I'm a firstborn of 9 children.
Oh
Very
gosh.
different. Very different, which is why we're going to get into overthinking and the type of overthinker I am, but I think this is why we sort of talked about before. I am an overthinker. I'm the type of over I'm a different type of overthinker, and that I I just like to keep it moving. There's so many pieces. There's always been so many pieces in my life. So, and my role has always been the one to just keep it going, and make sure the thing gets done. Somebody's got
Hmm.
to get it done. So, I'm
Hmm.
making sure stuff is getting done. I am not a perfectionist. I think people think, and maybe this is an oldest child stereotype, people think that I am like a student perfectionist, and that is not me at all. I am a solid B student.
Hmm.
I am, it's never perfect. It's almost never perfect, but it is done. It is done.
Yep.
Might be a little late, but it's done. I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I wrote a blog post about that. And we're going to talk about my overthinking quiz, but one of these results was actually supposed to be this. But I wrote a blog post a couple years ago called Bare Effing Minimum. And because I had a neighbor who walked out in a snowy day to uncover her car, and all of us had to move our car at 7 a.m. Across
yeah.
the street in the snow, and she literally just like enough to see out to get across the street, and then she announced to the street, bare effing minimum. And I was like, yes, because
That's it.
I say that I work with A students, and there's a segment of A students, and I believe that I'm one, who are like, have gamed the system. We have figured out exactly what's needed, and
Yes.
I think we're really proud of it. Like, I'm really proud of
Yeah.
it. I'm like, I didn't have to do that extra stuff. I
Hell
still
yeah.
got the A. And
Yes.
that to me was what she was saying when she was announcing the street. She's like, I could have cleaned off the rest of my car, but I didn't have to. And
Yeah.
so I'm going back inside where it's warm. And I love that.
Yeah.
I still think that you're an A student. You've
Yeah.
just figured it out.
Yeah.
And that part of our minds figures it out so fast that yeah, yeah, I think that is an A student quality.
I think you're right. I think you're totally right. I think in my head I was like, I'm not an A student. I don't know why. Like all through school, like I don't know how I'm managing to get these A's. Like I talked about in another episode, my roommate in college, Courtney, bless her, love her, so brilliant. She studied psychology, and she, to prepare for her test, she would be on the couch for days, and she would write all of her study
Mhm.
guides, and she would rewrite them over and over again, just pages of writing, and then she would read them. And I would prepare an hour before a test. And
Mhm.
obviously
Oh
like
yeah.
communication is different than psychology, so there's a lot of like, but that was also strategic too. There was no way I was going for that, even
I was
though,
communications major too.
so yeah, right, like we figured it out.
Yeah.
Communication can be so many things.
Yeah.
But in psychology is very interesting to me. I'm super interested in why people do the things that they do. I think about this all the time, especially in the work that I do in my, in my job that I get paid for, my consulting business for nonprofits. I'm constantly thinking like, what is it that drives people, motivates people to give, to be involved? That stuff is really fascinating to me. But bring it back here. So from what I have seen from some of your videos and some of the research that I've done, you had a pretty life changing thing happen to you that has led to doing the work that you're doing now. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. And I think that it relates to some of the stuff that we're talking about because I was very much an A student, um, growing up and and into college and even out of college. And in my 20s, I was living the A student life that all of the shoulds. Like I had a great job in Manhattan. I was like in the big city. I had the great outfits. I was working, like climbing the corporate ladder. I had a 401k and my parents were proud of me.
Wow.
My mom liked my boyfriend and I was eating my vegetables, like all of the
Wow. You
things,
were killing it.
like I was doing the thing that you're supposed to do. I kind of
Yeah.
knew I wasn't exactly happy with where I was, but I had checked so many boxes and that had been kind of that path had kind of been laid out in front of me. And I had an ear infection from I had been on a business trip and I had gotten this ear infection. It was really bothering me, and I'd never had one before. I went to the doctor to check it out, and the same day that I was going to give notice on my job because I had saved up enough money, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this crazy thing, like I'm going to leave for like a couple months. Yeah, I can get another job, but like I'm really going to figure out. And it was the same day I was about to give notice. I went to the doctor and found out that I had a brain tumor.
Wow.
And I was 28. Um, and I was in a place where I thought I kind of was on track and I was going to go figure stuff out. And
Yeah.
I'm doing the life. I've thought through everything that you have to. I've done all the right things, and yet something awful can still happen. And I remember being in the doctor's office, still staring at the MRI, and
Mm.
I couldn't. My brain didn't want to take in the information of what I saw, this golf ball that was there that wasn't supposed to be there.
Wow.
And also what I couldn't, and it took me, I would say, years to really come to terms with that. Like, even if you make all the quote unquote right choices, you can still end up, stuff still happens. and
Yeah.
and I think that the pandemic kind of was similar in that way to what most of us experience, and most of us have had something in our lives similar, which is the path we think we're on takes a turn, and we realize how little we have control over things.
Yeah.
Like the things we think we have control over, we probably don't. We don't have a control over if someone's going to call you back, or if if you're going to make money on that project, or if someone's going to like you, that kind of thing, or if it's going to work out. We actually don't have control over that, and we only really have control over the stories we tell ourselves about what's happening, the thoughts we think, the conversations that we have, the people that we choose to have around us, and the actions we choose out of the situation. Um,
Mm.
and that can be, and I really went around in circles with that when the diagnosis happened. Like, how do I get out of this? Oh, I can't get out of it. I can't get out of going to the hospital and having the surgery. Um, but I can control what it's like, who I am when I enter the hospital, and who I allow to come visit me when I'm at home after.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That is, I didn't know that part of your story, the fact that you had planned to give notice and take a little break at that time. So let's talk about that for a second. So what was it that got you to even that point before you had experienced this like thing that kind of makes you question all of your decisions in life? You had already been at a point where you were like, I know this isn't right for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to set myself up so I can take a break and figure it out.
Yeah. I want to say things make a lot more sense in retrospect than they do at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, I I had really good reviews as an A student. I had really good reviews at the end of the year, at the end of every year. Um, but the things that I was praised for were not the things I was being paid for. So I
Interesting.
could enter a room with our clients. So I was working in public relations, and I could enter a room with our clients, and I could tell based on their, it's in my 20s. I could tell based on their body language and even the words that they were using what was going to happen with our account, with our projects.
Wow.
I could say, like, when we got out of meetings, I would tell my bosses, even though they said all the right things, I really think that we need to do more than, anyway, I could see other things. The other thing that would happen
Yeah.
is folks who were having problems, staff who were having problems on other teams were put on my team to kind of figure it out. Like
Mm.
I would change the way we worked to work for the different needs of the members of my team. Yeah, it made everything work, but it wasn't, my job was actually having relationships with media and hosting events and things like that. And I was okay at those things, but I was really good at the people stuff, at the reading the room, at like kind of shifting the way our work happened to work for everybody there. And I was like, these skills have to apply in a different way. Like I I looked forward at my bosses and said, I don't want their job. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't know what that next job is, but it's probably not here. And
Yeah.
maybe I need to take some time to figure that out. And I did my due diligence. I looked at my savings account and I
Hmm.
said, okay, how many months of savings do I have to make it to make this time really worthwhile for me to go out and search and see what else is out there. So
Yeah.
that kind of was where I was on a, I was already, there was already an inkling. Now
Yeah.
looking back, there was already an inkling of, this isn't the right thing, it's something else, I wonder what. And looking back, I can see that the tumor is actually part of the path that I was
Yeah.
on, and not this separate thing. Because at the time it felt like, oh, I'm being, I'm everything is derailed. Like everything that I wanted in my life, I have all of this control, all of this time on, I have this money saved, it's perfect, and I'm being derailed by this awful, awful life altering event. And now it seems perfect. It's like, oh, well, that helped me answer the question that I posed right before this diagnosis, which is,
Wow.
what's next for me?
Yeah. It's so interesting to me how obviously hindsight is amazing, but how sometimes when we put it out there and I'm a girl who likes to talk about the universe and like,
Yeah.
what we put out we get back and all of that. But it's so interesting that you had already put it out there. I need something different. I know this is what I'm good at, but I don't know what to do with it. And the universe was just like, boom, gotcha. We're gonna speed you up here by putting you through this like truly life altering wild experience. And I think, well, I'm going to let you tell your story. So after you get this diagnosis, you have to have, was it 3 or 4 brain
Three.
surgeries?
Yeah.
3 surgeries. So how do you get to the other side? And when you get there, what's next? How did you know what was next and what was it?
So what happened, and I think you're alluding to, I've done speeches about this moment that I had when I was in the hospital. There is a moment that I had when I realized that I am, and all of us are, not necessarily in charge of that our bodies are made to heal themselves. Our bodies naturally, I mean, you have a cut, it heals itself. And that we need to get, our minds need to get out of the way so our bodies can do what it naturally knows how to do, which is heal itself. That in no way questions medicine.
Right.
Obviously I've gone through surgeries and believe that they're necessary and worthwhile, and we can do our work to allow our bodies to take the healing that's coming from the medicine and the stuff that we're, the regular medicine that we're already working with. And so what happened for me is I had this moment that I talk about in my book, my first book, and in my speeches, where I realized I was getting in the way. My overthinking, my trying too hard, even from within a hospital bed, was getting in the way of my body just healing itself.
Wow.
And the more I got out of the way, the more my body healed and felt better. And the easier it was for me to get out of the hospital for the third time and on the road to recovery. And it was in that moment in an ICU, when you don't have a lot of control, the ICU, there's relatively nothing that you can do and you feel awful, that I realized that was the road I was supposed to be on. I was supposed to help people recognize the power that we do have, what we do have control over, and what we don't have control over. I
Mm.
didn't have control over being in that hospital bed in the ICU. I did have control over believing in my body, trusting that things were going to work out, um, surrounding myself with people that I love and that love me back and that reflected all of this positivity back to me. And that was actually making a difference in my health and my life. And
Wow.
if I could help other people recognize that kind of power that they have within them, because those things aren't small that we control, they're huge. And you were saying
Yeah.
about the universe, like that's all manifestation. And
Yeah.
I didn't have that word at the time, but I knew if I could help other people recognize the power they have in themselves to affect change in their life, whether it's the work that they do or their relationships or how they see their life on a day-to-day basis, that would be an awesome thing. And that's what I decided in the ICU. And I thought actually at that moment back to, I had worked with a coach um, the year prior to my surgery. I had taken a sabbatical. No one had ever
Mm.
asked for a sabbatical in my uh, at my job, and I was like, well, why not? I have 6 weeks off. Like I can do it whatever I want. And so I asked, and I worked with a coach to figure out how to plan this 6 week sabbatical. And I was like, oh, I could do coaching like that. I've seen now what it can do because it helped me recognize I had more power to do amazing things in my life, like take a sabbatical. Maybe that's the way I could do it. And a year after being in the hospital, I started studying to be a coach.
So cool. So cool. So you also wrote your first book, which is I'm Scared and Doing It Anyway, How a Little White
Yeah,
Blob Changed My Life. I have it in my Amazon cart right now. I'm very excited to read it.
awesome.
When did you write that book, and what was your hope for people in the messaging that you have in that book?
Yeah, that book came from a speech, actually. So I'm an introvert and never imagined myself on a stage ever. But after having something really frightening, like a brain tumor, being on stage was a little less frightening. And
Yeah.
there was this opportunity when I lived in DC to give a 5-minute talk. And I thought like, oh, what if it was how my brain tumor will change your life? Um, and so when I was on stage, and I thought I was going to throw up, I literally thought this was going to be the moment I was going to throw up in front of a room of 450 people.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I one of the things was I had this slide with Braveheart. If you've seen, like, he's wearing this blue paint and Mel Gibson is like, "Rah!"
Yeah.
They're fighting this war, and I had this image behind me, and I said, "I'm on stage tonight because I'm scared and doing it anyway." Rah! And I made this roar sound, and everyone in the audience roared back, and people came.
Unprompted.
Yeah, totally unprompted. They had no idea this was going to happen. I, talked about being scared and doing it anyway. And they roared back. And the whole rest of the night, people kept coming up to me and saying, I'm scared and doing it anyway, too.
Ugh,
And
chills.
there's something about owning your feelings, owning who you are. And you've said this even about other podcasters and things that are meaningful to you.
Hmm.
When people are themselves, when people are true to themselves, it creates space for you to be yourself, for you to own
Yeah.
things that maybe are uncomfortable to own, whether it's grief or happiness or disappointment. And so I owned fear that night. And I had people come up to me, and I realized, like, oh, that's the thing that I need to name. And that's how the name of my book happened. And that's how, even though I knew I wanted to tell the story of my brain tumor, that was the lens that I was looking through.
Hmm.
My business is Simply Leap, and it's about leaping in your career, in your life, into a business. But there's fear facing. The simply part is not necessarily so simple,
Hmm.
especially when we kind of see it out in front of us. It's actually a lot of fear and discomfort, and things are new, and what am I going to do about it? How am I going to know this is will succeed? And I was scared on lots of levels, and owning my fear and talking about my fear allows other people to feel like it's okay to own your fear too.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the conversation that I have in the book, and that's the conversation when people read it or hear me speak, they come back to me and talk about as well.
I love that. You also said in one of the talks that I watched about how fears, adults and children, the way we handle fears are so similar in that, kids, we both like them in the closet. And when as a child, when you finally open the closet and shine the light, you see, you face your fear, there's nothing there, which fears are valid, like especially grown up fears are very
Mhm.
valid. But sometimes facing that fear that's holding you back head on and moving through it can really help you get to the other side.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of the times while human fear is very real, like the fear that you had, you didn't want to be sick. I don't want to be sick. That's a very real fear. A lot of the times as adults, though, our fears are not real. They're just things that we've created in our heads that aren't even there. So facing them and opening the closet to find that there's nothing there is like great. But even when it is real, something you said was um, naming our fear also allows us to name what we want. And so you knew you didn't want to be sick, but that also meant you knew you wanted to be healthy. So I think that making that mindset transition from focusing on the fear to focusing on what it is you want, I think that can be really hard for people. Do you have um, any advice or tools that you've used or that you've given some of your clients to help switch from that focusing on the fear to focusing on what it is they want?
Yeah, I think one of the easiest ones that I do that is I liken it to, if somebody asks you, what do you want for dinner? Oftentimes we'll say, oh, I don't really want pizza. We sometimes say the thing that we don't want first. That's the easier one for us to name. And so if you know the thing you don't want, you're already halfway there. Like, give
Mm-hmm.
yourself credit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something about the what you don't want that if you tease it out a little longer, you can get to. So, what is it about the thing you don't want? Like, is it Is it the tomato sauce? Is it the cheese? You know, like, are you not looking for something cheesy tonight, but you
Yeah.
do want red sauce? So it's that same kind of thing. It's like, I don't, I'm not throwing out everything. I'm saying, okay, so what is it about the thing? What is it about the job that you're in right now that you don't like? There are aspects of it that you do like. So what are those things that you want to keep? And what are the things that you want to shift? So it's that kind of curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
and even starting with the thing that you don't want, that can help you feel empowered about choosing what you do. Sometimes we get stuck in the I don't know, um, because because knowing feels like a big thing. We have to
Mm.
know all of it
Yes.
in order to
Right.
state it. And I talk to folks, especially who are changing jobs or careers. Like, if we don't have a Googleable term, if we don't have like the 2-word description of I want to be, you know, then how do we even start? And it's like, well,
Yeah.
actually, if you start with all the descriptive things, all the small things, and build those together, yeah, the 2-word description will probably happen. But if you start trying to figure out the name, that's going to feel overwhelming, and it's like, I don't know what the name is. Yeah, but there are these aspects that are important to you. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd say start as small as possible with the
Mm.
things that you do know that you want, and let them build into a bigger picture for you.
Love that. So let's talk about the overthinker quiz too, and the different types of overthinkers. So what how did you come up with this idea of having a quiz, and what are the different types of overthinkers, and how do we fix it?
Yeah, yeah. um, so overthinking is a superpower, I will say. So I tend to work with overthinkers and A students, and I am uh, both of those things. And the quizzes are so fun.
I love a quiz. I love a
Yeah.
quiz.
And okay, so my favorite clients love a quiz too. So it's like,
Yeah,
if there's a new quiz about something I can learn about myself and understand myself better, I am so there. Even if it's,
totally.
how do you know, like, based on what kind of chocolate you like, who you are as a person, I'm
Yeah.
there. I'm going to do
Yep.
it.
I'm in.
Um, and so I thought it would be so fun to make one, and it totally was fun
Yeah.
to make a quiz. And then I thought about, um, so many of us are, like what you're saying about before about being an A student. A students, the term A student can have a lot of um, opinions attached to it, judgment attached to it, and not everybody wants to admit it. But if you're
Right.
an overthinker, you are raising your hand so fast.
Yeah.
Like, I am such a, like, there's no denying it. Even if you're
Yeah.
apologetic about it, there's no denying it. Um, and so I wanted to kind of name that for people, that name that's who we are, and it's okay. And also tease out where the overthinking comes from. So what causes it, and how it's, because I think that most of us, when we admit that we're overthinkers, we think it's a liability. Like,
Mm,
like,
yep.
oh, I can't get out of my own way. I've like cycle through, or I second guess, or everyone's like, why are you still thinking about that? Like, there are these, um, this kind of apology about being one. And I really think it's a superpower, because um, if we weren't if we weren't getting something from it, we wouldn't have kept doing it all this time.
Yeah.
Meaning, our overthinking also allows us to be really good researchers. Like, I can find an awesome trip faster than most people I know. I
Mm-hmm.
can, like, I can research really, really fast. I can find the answer to something. And that comes from overthinking. Like, my brain works faster.
Yeah.
I can assess a room faster than people, or I can think about, what does everyone need in this conversation, or in this room, to find clarity and create connection. Okay, that's part of our overthinking used as a skill.
Yeah.
And so if we can see that we wouldn't have been overthinking all this time if it wasn't already serving a purpose, and then notice the ways that overthinking shows up in a good way, in a positive way, in a way that helps other people or helps ourselves, um, then we can start to shift how we use overthinking. And when it happens, is it the second guessing kind? Is it the spiraling kind of overthinking? Or can
Mm.
I shift it towards the part that empowers me, that makes me feel clear, that helps other people feel connected and seen? And then we have more, we have more awareness and more confidence from it.
I love that. I took the quiz and I got the big heart overthinker. So can you I was like, "Oh, that's nice. That's really nice." And it's, we've kind of talked already, so I tend to I'm a mover. I It's funny because in some ways I would describe myself as an underthinker because
Mhm.
I'm that bare minimum girl. I'm like, "Okay, what do we need to get this done?" But where I overthink is definitely in what I would say are like my people pleasing tendencies. I want to make sure, like I think we have maybe similar personality, similar qualities in that when I go into a room, I'm very empathetic, and so I feel all the energy of everybody there,
Right.
and I want to make sure that everyone is properly engaged, that everyone feels like they have been included in the conversation, and I'm going to make sure it keeps moving forward, but I want to make sure everyone is on the same page about it and they feel equally understood and
Mhm.
valued. And where I think I have found lately, I have let overthinking keep me from moving is I have taken on too many things. And so then I get into this like decision paralysis where I there's so many things in here and I know what to do for each of them, but I don't know which one to pick first. And so then I
Mhm.
just sit and try to think about something else. Does that sound in line with the with the big heart
Yeah,
overthinker?
yeah, for sure. Especially if some of those things that you're trying to choose between involve other people and involve
Yeah,
potentially
always.
disappointing them.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
that's a yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of
Yeah.
pressure. And so there are, a couple things attached. The one I would say is, in general, even if you don't feel like you're an overthinker, um, when a decision is hard, it's often because a couple of our values feel like they're in conflict with one another. I can't
Mm,
have X and Y. And so you basically are binging back and forth between, but X is really important, but I can't get rid of that Y because they're both
mm,
your values. And sometimes there's a third one and you're really juggling.
yeah.
Um, but it's like, okay, I can't choose something that really feels aligned for me and keep everybody happy.
Right.
And how do I choose right for me and keep everybody happy? It's like, well, I can't let go of either of these things. And so making a decision feels impossible. But it's
Yeah.
really like, how do we find an option that serves both?
Yeah.
And maybe it's a conversation with the people about, people you care about the direction you're going in. Maybe it is that you've already made a choice, but it's how you deal with the people part that's going to help you feel like your values stay aligned.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's another option that's different than the one that's right in front of you that is going to better serve both of those. But naming the values that feel in conflict with one another is really helpful to see, oh, this is where the second guessing is coming from, that
Yeah.
these things are really important to me. And it feels in conflict, even if it really isn't in conflict.
Yeah. I see a lot of memes on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere now about I've seen like a reel that people will make showing like a woman like cleaning or like working out or eating like different vignettes. And on the screen, it's like, if you are eating all your vegetables, working out every day, getting all your work done, spending time with your kids, working on your relationships, Like all your laundry is folded. You're not a real person. That's not real. Are you okay? How it just feels like there's
Yeah.
so much. We have so many expectations and we all
Mhm.
have so many roles in our lives, and sometimes it feels, well, actually all the time it feels very overwhelming and impossible to get it all done. Like I in my last therapy session, I was like, Anne, once a week, I sit down and I look at my calendar for the week and I plan out when I'm going to work out. I plan out all of my meetings. I see when I've got podcast recording, when I'm going to edit my podcast. I see, I block time for each of my clients. I plan my meals, when I'm going to grocery shop. I look at when my boys have soccer or activities and things. And I said, I spend hours on this on Sundays. And it never goes the way that I plan it. It never does. Not once. It might start off maybe on Monday good, but honestly, there's almost always something on Monday that immediately detracts me. Like one of the kids is sick, or there's actually no school today, or, who knows what it could be. So, how do we better prioritize, or is it a myth that you can do all of these things at once? I'm sure that this is something that you and your clients are talking about regularly. So what do you tell your clients in situations like all of us are in?
Mm. Yeah. Okay. So I'll speak to it as an A student. So A's were really easy in third grade because the rules were written on the board in construction paper. And I
Yes,
looked at them and said, I can do those things. Psh, no problem. Gold
totally.
star, hand it to me. Adult life is not that way.
Yeah.
And I think the majority of the folks that I work with and myself are coming to terms with that. Coming to terms
Yeah.
with, if there was a rule book, I would have knocked this out of the park,
That
no
happened.
problem.
Yeah.
If we had all agreed that these 5 things are the only things that matter, yep. But
Mhm.
it really depends on who you talk to, which 5 things actually matter, or which day it is. And so, yeah, so it's really hard to um, try to be the best and try to get it right um, when the rules are not laid out and all agreed on, like in a classroom in elementary school.
Yeah.
And so one of the things it's it's easier said than done, but one of the things is figuring out how to give yourself gold stars, how to give yourself an A. If I do these 3 things in the course of this week, I get an A. And the more we look externally for the A, the more disappointing it will be.
Yeah.
And social media is the biggest disappointment.
Ugh.
I will say that while I have definitely gone in shame spirals watching people, exactly the people that you just described, folding all their laundry. My laundry's
Yeah.
folded, but folding all their laundry, eating all their
Mine is
vegetables,
not.
planning their workouts. That one I have not done. But like that spiral is real. And it happens actually even not on social media. It happens like when you're having coffee with a friend and they list the things that they did and you're like, crap, I only did 3 of the things that they mentioned. Um, so it's how many likes you get on a post
Yeah.
versus how many likes you got on a post last time.
Yeah.
It's how much you could actually get done, even though there was a snow day. And Buffalo, I can't even imagine how many snow days you have.
Oh, it's all the time.
Um, so yeah, uh, so I think that it's really being clear about who we're allowing to give us an A,
Yeah.
who we're allowing that isn't us to give us a gold star, and how to take some of that back for ourselves. And I would say it, in addition to that, so there's what's going to constitute a gold star for this week. Is it 3 things? I wouldn't go over 5. Is it a
Mm.
couple main things? And what am I going to do on what day, at what time, to acknowledge that those things were done, that I did well. Because the other thing that we can do is not acknowledge the the great things that happened, because the next week it's Sunday again and the
Exactly.
next list is started. And
Yeah.
so we need a breath, a day, an hour in between those things to be like, yeah, did it, checked
Yeah.
it off the list. And again, most people aren't going to do that for you. So
Yeah.
it has to be scheduled. When
Yeah.
am I gonna praise myself?
That is such a good lesson and something that I'm constantly having to relearn. As you were talking, I was thinking about how what I have found to be most successful for me to getting things done. Two things. One is going through something really hard, which obviously I don't want to do that all the time, right? Like I I'm still going through a divorce process, but especially like at the in the thick of it last year, it was really, really difficult. And so I was highly motivated to get into the gym and move my body and do really push my body. And
Mhm.
it resulted in being like the most fit that I ever was. And
Hey.
now, which is great. Now, things are still hard. Like these things take a long time and co-parenting is difficult and all of that, but it's not as intense as it once was. And my appetite has come back. And so getting to the gym while balancing all these other things and making sure I'm not eating cheeseburgers every day because that's where I am and it's right in front of me has been harder. So that is one thing that works for me, but obviously that's not sustainable. I don't want to keep I think challenging yourself is important and pushing yourself and taking risks is always a good thing. But going through a hard, big life change is not something that you want to be doing all the time or creating for yourself. But also, accountability has always been really helpful for me. But as you're saying, you have to think about where the gold stars are coming from, like who that's really what accountability has been for me is someone else is telling me you did good this week. You did
Mhm.
great. I started working with a financial advisor
Awesome.
and it's great because I think about every time I spend money now, I'm like, what would Nicole say about this? Like, this is going to add. And it's, that's good, I guess, because it's helping me in some way. But ultimately, long term, I need to move myself to a place where I don't need Nicole to feel that about me. I can look at myself and say, this is a good purchase. I'm doing the right thing, or I'm doing the right thing by not making this purchase because I'm investing in myself and go me. Yeah. So that is, and I think that's for me, I know this is like very deeply rooted in my people pleasing tendencies. And, that's where my oldest child of so many children, like that's where that is rooted in. So how is there hope for me? How do I
Oh,
how do I find enough
you're
fulfillment
an
in
A student.
myself?
Of course there is.
Right, right. Like I think I'm getting there, and I think it's a work in progress for
Mhm.
sure. But yeah, what would you how would you help me? And
What?
also, on a separate note, I do want to know, well, I guess I could wait to ask you this, but I want to know more about like coaching because
Oh yeah,
coaching sounds like accountability to me. So
absolutely.
I've
That's what
always
it's built on.
so I've always wondered like what it would be like to work with a coach, and like so talk to us about that too. But first,
Cool.
how do we help people like me?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is we we don't have really good models for this,
Yeah.
what you're talking about. And so we've been modeled by our movies and magazines and probably our families that women have to be humble and like we just get stuff done and oh
Mhm.
don't take a picture of me and don't like oh I don't deserve a thank you, it's okay, I'll just do it anyway. It's like we
Yeah.
don't have really good models for lots of different reasons. So of course it's hard because when we have good models it's easier.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, like, if anyone's struggling with this, there's a reason why we're
Yeah.
struggling with this. And so it's okay that this is new and different, and we don't have it's not easy for us to see, because also sometimes I would say especially women are questioned when they're proud of themselves.
Yeah.
And so we got to get better when we see another woman, whether it's online or in person, praising themselves and excited about what they've done. We need to go whole hog into it. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, because the more we support someone else, the more it will be okay for ourselves to feel that same way. So, that would
Totally.
be soapbox about that. But the other thing that I'll say, okay, so we don't have really good models, but they are out there. So I would say go find some role models that are okay and that are out there praising themselves and being happy about what they've accomplised.
And maybe
Um,
I'll start doing it on this podcast. Maybe I'll end
yeah,
every podcast with something great about
yeah,
myself.
absolutely. So the other thing that I'll say is you have kids.
Yeah.
And one of the things with the moms that I've worked with, your kids are really good um uh impetus to do things that might be uncomfortable otherwise.
Yeah.
And if your kids see you proud of yourself, what's that going to do for their own psyche and sense
Oh,
of
wow.
self? And
Yeah.
if they see you not proud of yourself or waiting for someone else to compliment them, what is that going to do to their, you know, feelings about their self, themselves? Um,
Yeah.
and so we have, and this
Wow.
isn't necessarily a guilt trip, but it totally works with moms. You are doing something because you are modeling the behavior you hope they have in them, and they learn from your modeling. So if you out loud, there's a fake it till you make it kind of thing too. If you out loud are saying, here's what I'm proud of today to your
Yeah.
kids, that is teaching them it's okay to be proud about things. It's okay to um to believe in yourself.
Yeah. That is, oh my gosh. I'm going to make that a regular practice with my boys because something I try to do every night with them is for them to tell me what their favorite part of the day was, just so
Mhm,
that like they're ending their day having some gratitude,
mhm.
without maybe using the word. Sometimes I use the word gratitude with my son, my 8-year-old son, but with my 3-year-old, I'm like, what was your favorite part of today? What was your favorite thing that we did today? But we're going to add that to it. I love that. Like, what are you proud of yourself for today? And
Mhm.
I always share my favorite part of the day. So
Good.
then that'll give me the opportunity to model and say, I'm really proud that I did this today. I
Yeah.
love that. That is such a great idea. And it's so true. And that's I'm so grateful for my kids because they push me to do things and to try things that I definitely wouldn't normally do. And the idea, a huge cause of my overthinking and anxiety is that I am raising these little children, and everything I do is affecting them, and they're going to be in therapy about it one day, just like I am now. Love you, mom and dad.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's very overwhelming. And sometimes I get too hung up in all the things, again, like the focusing on the bad thing instead of focusing on the good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get really hung up on the places I've fallen short and the things that have happened that I wish I could have handled differently or could have protected them from or whatever.
Mhm.
But focusing on what are the good things that I can continue to do, what are the ways that I can model by acting in this certain way. Like, it's such a gift as a parent to think that I need to talk about what I'm proud of so that my children will do that. Like, it's such a
Yeah.
gift to know that I have this responsibility. So I have to do it. It's important that I do this because it's not just about me, it's about these children. And I guess, you don't have to have kids to feel that too. Like, everyone that you interact with, like you said, you are a model for other people. We all can be. There's another like manifesting thing that I follow, and they would call this like expanders. So you can be an expander for other people. You can expand their mind of what's
Mhm.
possible
Yep.
by modeling it, by
Yeah.
giving, and you give them permission, like you
Imagine,
said.
imagine a lunch, hanging out with your friends. They're probably going to be complaining. I mean, some
Yep.
of my friends, we're going to
Yep.
do that. We're going to like, oh, this isn't working or this happened
Right.
or whatever. Um, can it also be, hey, friend, what are you proud of?
Yeah.
I'm proud of you for this. So maybe it's even like I can say something about the people that I'm having lunch with, because that shifts the conversations with adults too.
Yes, absolutely. I really like that.
Because what you put out gets reflected back.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, totally. I heard in another obviously I spend way too much time on Instagram, but I saw in another Instagram this woman talking about at her like friend dinners, they started saying what their dream are, what their goal is for the next like month or a couple months. And but they say it like it's already happened, and then
yeah.
all of the friends like vibe with this person. So if I'm like I want to hit 1,000 listeners an episode, or so I would say like I have $1,000 listeners per podcast episode, then everyone at the table like is just like, yeah, you have 1,000 listeners, like we just like vibe off of that like feeling of what it would feel like for that. Or yeah, like if someone's on like a health journey, I lost 5 pounds in a month, and everyone's just like, yeah, oh my god, you must feel so good, like. So I love that. I think, and you kind of talked about this before too, like really being conscious of what the things that we can control. And one of the things we can control is who we're surrounding ourselves with and what kind of conversations we're having with those people. And so shifting into this place of let's talk about what we're proud of and what we're doing, like that. And that may be something that maybe you have like a regular meet up with friends, and you don't even know that these are goals or dreams that these people are working on. So it also just like connects you to people in a different and really special way. So yeah, I think being super intentional about what's in our space and what kind of conversations we're talking about really makes a big difference. So I'm going to be working on that definitely over the
Awesome.
next
I
couple
can't
weeks.
wait
So
to hear how it
yeah.
goes.
So last thing I want to talk about before we do our final question is your second book. We didn't even get to your second book. So it's
Okay.
called Simply Leap: 7 Lessons on Facing Fear and Enjoying the Crap Out of Your Life. So who would you recommend? This is another one that's in my Amazon right now. I'm very excited. Who do you think is would benefit the most from this book?
Yeah. Okay. So my first book is a memoir. So, if you're a memoir reader. The second book is I consider it a happy how to. So it's more in the self help genre. It is I wrote it 10 years into my coaching business to tell the stories of my most successful clients, and even though they're very different on different journeys themselves, I realized that they had 8 things in common. They did these 8 things,
Hmm.
and so I list the 8 lessons, and it really takes you through what a leap looks like using them as an example. And so the chapters, it's a short book. You can read one section at a time. It gives a couple tips on how to do things. There's homework assignments for the A students in each one of the lessons, and there's a story that's very particularly connected to that lesson,
Cool.
so you can see yourself in what this can look like. And yeah, so it's a great gift. It's a
Yeah.
great gift to give to people who are in the midst or thinking about a leap of their own.
Awesome. Can you give us a little like sneak peek of the lessons?
Yeah. It's so funny because my book is over there and I can't quite reach it, but it is here behind me. This is my so funny.
Oh, I love it. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. When I published my books, I was like, oh, I'm gonna put my covers, and
Heck
so
yeah.
I can be proud of it.
That's right.
Um,
That's your gold stars right there.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So one of them is doing things you've never done before, because doing things
Mm.
you've never done before leads to places you've never been. and it's kind of pushing through the fear and discomfort. There's also, so one of my favorite lessons is find your linchpin. And a
Mm.
linchpin is a thing on a car that keeps the tire connected to the vehicle. It's an actual necessary thing. And we have people right now, there are times in your life that you can go back to and remember, gosh, if I didn't have that conversation, if that person didn't say it and I didn't hear it that way at that moment, I don't think I'd be where I am right now. And
Mm.
it's like opening a door you wouldn't have opened otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it's likely, if you're finding yourself at a new stage or ready for a new leap, it's likely that there is one or two or three linchpins that are going to show up. We may not know that they're linchpins until years later, but there's something about how you found the linchpins of the past that's going to indicate how you're going to find them now.
Mm.
So maybe, one of my linchpins from the past is I am a fairly shy, introverted person, but I was at a yoga class and I happened to talk to the person in the mat next to me.
Mm.
And we struck up a conversation. And because I did something slightly out of my comfort zone, that led to me having a job opportunity
Oh,
that I
wow.
wouldn't have known about otherwise. And it's like, wow, how did that even happen? Well, I did something different.
Yeah.
Made a different choice on that day. So today, what different choices can I make that might lead to a new linchpin?
Yeah. That is super cool. It is so interesting to me when I look back and I love that term. I feel like I want to make like a list of linchpins in my notes app as a reminder of all the ways. But it's so amazing. It really is so incredible how one conversation or one different choice or one different route can completely alter everything. And I'm more of a look forward than a look back person. So, but with that context, it's so exciting thinking a year from now, my life could look completely different. And it
Yep,
always does. Like
it
my
does.
life this time last year was not good. It was not good. I was in month 3 of dealing with bed bugs here.
Oh God.
Yeah, we were, my husband had just moved out, and so we were navigating that. Like I yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot this time last year, and now I see where I'm at, and it's like, wow, I didn't know at that time, even though I was doing the podcast then, I was kind of lackluster with it, and it fell off for a little bit over the summer just because of all the heaviness of everything I was dealing with. But now I'm like, wow, like my friend made this beautiful branding for me, and I'm getting to have awesome conversations like this with you. And it's just like picked up so much momentum, and my business has picked up so much momentum. And, I, yeah. And like in my personal life, so like so many things happening, so many beautiful like friendships that I've been able to like really like light on fire in the best way and deepen and everything. So it's just incredible how you just never know where
Mhm.
life is going to take you, and maybe having like some kind of direction is good, but being open to whatever is going to come your way, I think, is a really exciting and fun way to live.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being on this podcast. Final question. This is going to be a tough one, I think, because there's a lot of things that you have learned. But the final question I ask is, it's your final day on earth. You've lived a very full life. You have had all the experiences you were hoping for, very fulfilling relationships. Like you've had a great time. It's been awesome. And you can leave 3 lessons behind. Your books, unfortunately, they're gone. We don't have them anymore. There's nothing
Mhm.
else. What are the 3 lessons that you learned from your time here on earth that you would pass along?
Um, well, the books don't exist, but the being scared and doing it anyway exists. So I'll stay with that.
Yes. Yeah.
That it you don't have to be fearless. You don't have to push yourself through, that you can be scared, uncomfortable, really nervous, and still take slow, thoughtful, kind steps forward. That still counts. Those small steps count. That would be the other thing. Small steps count. So be scared to do it anyway. Small steps count. And oh my gosh. I think the other one is that we're in this together. I say that a lot in my business, especially around working with women entrepreneurs, because it can feel really lonely working for yourself, and it doesn't have to. That we can be in this together, and we can support each other and lift each other up. And when we believe that we're in it together, we make different choices. We lift the other person up. If I believe that we're in it together and you praise yourself, I am so in to whatever you're praising yourself for. And I want to proactively praise you as well. And so, I'm scared in doing it anyway. We're in this together, and small steps count.
Thank you. That is awesome. I'm definitely going to take away all of those things today. And I'm going to be thinking about this conversation for a long time. I hope that everyone who listened enjoyed this episode. I hope you share it. There's so much goodness here. So let's try and get this in front of as many people as possible. Where is the best place for people to go to find your information, find your books, find info on your coaching, take the quiz?
So my website is simplyleap.com. The quiz is there. My books are there. My speeches and things are there. And how to work with me in coaching is there. I am Lauree Ostrofsky on Instagram, but everywhere else I'm Simply Leap. So Facebook and LinkedIn and things like that. But Simply Leap, my website, is probably the best place to go.
Great. Well, and we'll link to all the things in the show notes as well. So definitely go in there. Obviously, if you're not already, please follow at Mostly All Figured Out podcast. No, at Mostly All Figured Out. I know my own Instagram handle. Got it. Yeah, please follow us. We I always share when a new episode has dropped. I have been reposting season 1 episodes to YouTube since we started the YouTube channel recently. So those drop usually on Wednesdays. I'm a little behind. I have one going up today. Although when you're listening to this, it'll be days later. So that doesn't matter. But we are keeping the Instagram popping. So get over there because there's some good stuff and fun things for you to share and listen to, excerpts from the show, etc. Please subscribe, rate, review. I think I have this in my closing now, actually. Lauree, I don't know if you know this, but I used to, when I started this podcast, I used to create a jingle to start every episode.
I love it.
It was wild. This is, again, goes back to the, I wasn't afraid to just, kind of make a fool of myself. And so I would just, sing a song. But we're moving up. We're leveling up. So now I do have an intro, a real nice intro. Thank you. And I do have a little outro as well. So I won't go on too much here because you're going to hear it in a second with some really nice beats in the background. But thank you for listening. Thank you, Lauree, for joining us today. And we'll see you all next week. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, there's a few things you can do to really help your girl out. Please subscribe, rate the podcast, give me a little review. All those things really do help me in a lot of ways. And this year, I'm really trying to expand my reach. I'm trying to get this podcast in front of more people who might need it. My people, our people. So let's keep growing this beautiful community of nice people who are just trying to be their best selves. So if you know someone who might like it, please send them the link, share it in your stories, tag us, which is another thing you can do. Actually, if you're not already, please follow us on Instagram at Mostly All Figured Out. I've actually been very good about posting new episodes every Friday, so you can see who is up. You can get some little previews, sneak previews with some sound bites that we post throughout the week. And it really helps, again, in expanding our reach a little bit and getting us out there in front of more people. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting. Love ya.